You're looking for the best pre-built gaming PC 2025. So today, we'll cover everything that you need to know to buy the best pre-built gaming PC in 2025 for your budget. And we'll make specific product recommendations for the best budget pre-built gaming PC, the best 1440p pre-built gaming PC, and the best 4K pre-built gaming PC in 2025. Let's jump into it. The graphics card, also called the GPU, that's the most important part of buying the best pre-built gaming PC in 2025. Now, how fast your graphics card is will determine how many frames per second, FPS, that you can get at the resolution that you want to play at, 1080p, 1440p, or 4K. Now, it does also depend on the games that you play, as some games, they're just harder to run, particularly single-player titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Black Myth Wukong. While many multiplayer competitive titles like CS2 and Marvel Rivals, they're much easier to run and they're going to give you tons more FPS. In addition to how fast a graphics card is, you also need to get a graphics card with enough video RAM, or VRAM for short. Now, this is different from the system RAM, which we'll cover later. In 2025, there's a growing number of games where at ultra or even high settings at 1440p, even 1080p, your graphics card can run out of VRAM, and that's going to lead to stuttering, not loading textures, or other issues. This primarily impacts single-player titles and has less of an impact on competitive multiplayer games like Marvel Rivals or CS2, though we have seen it impact games like Halo recently. In 2025, I recommend at least 8GB of VRAM for budget 1080p pre-built gaming PCs, at least 10GB of VRAM for no compromises 1080p gaming, at least 12GB for 1440p pre-built gaming PCs, and 16GB of VRAM for 4K pre-built gaming PCs. So what graphics card should you get? Well, AMD, Intel, and Nvidia all make graphics cards. In 2025, I would recommend any of them to pre-built gaming PC buyers. We're at the beginning of a new graphics card generation, with AMD's RX 9000 series, Nvidia's RTX 50 series, and Intel's B series of graphics cards. Most of the last generation of GPUs has sold out, but we can find a couple of RTX 40 series and RX 7000 series graphics cards still in pre-builts right now. Looking at benchmarks by TechSpot and VRAM amounts, for 4K gaming, the fastest GPU that's currently available is the RTX 5090 32GB GPU, followed by the RTX 5080 and RTX 4080 Super 16GB GPUs, then the RTX 5070 Ti and RX 9070 XT 16GB GPUs, then the RTX 9070 and RTX 4070 Ti Super GPUs, both with 16GB of VRAM. These benchmarks use the ultra detail settings, so for single player games, you can always get more FPS at the high setting or turning it down to medium, or if you mostly play competitive games like CS2 or Marvel Rivals, you will get a ton more FPS at competitive settings. Moving over to 1440p GPUs, in addition to the ones that I just listed, we have the RTX 5070, RTX 4070 Super, and RTX 4070, all of those with 12GB of VRAM, along with the RX 7800 XT 16GB that you can still find in some pre-builts. On the more budget side, we have the Intel Arc B580 12GB, RX 7600 XT 16GB, and RTX 3060 12GB GPUs. Again, these are at ultra details, so this is a worst case scenario. We are also expecting more graphics cards to launch in this segment in the coming months, including the RX 9060 XT and the RTX 5060 Ti. Switching over to 1080p and budget gaming, we add in the RTX 4060 Ti 8GB, the RTX 4060 8GB, the Arc B570 10GB, RX 7600 and 6600 8GB GPUs, and the RTX 3050 8GB. Note that some of the older GPUs are becoming very hard to find. We are expecting more graphics card in this segment as well, like the RTX 5060 and RX 9060. The number 2 most important part of buying the best pre-built gaming PC in 2025, you guessed it, the CPU. Now, your CPU is important because your pre-built gaming PC needs it to be fast enough to keep up with your graphics card. For any graphics card at or above an RTX 5070, I recommend at least a mid-range to higher-end gaming CPU. Now, the current fastest gaming CPUs are the Ryzen X3D CPUs, specifically the Ryzen 7 9800X3D or the previous generation Ryzen 7 7800X3D. Now, you'll pay a little bit of a price premium for these, but they are definitely worth it, especially if you get an RTX 5080 or RTX 5090 gaming PC. Other good options include the Ryzen 9700X or Ryzen 7700 or 7700X, or the Ryzen 9600X or 7600X along with the Ryzen 7600. The higher core count Ryzen CPUs like the 9950X3D, 9950X, or 9900X, they're also fine, but these are mostly beneficial special for professional level creators doing high-end tasks like 3D rendering and video editing. Intel CPUs are a bit lower performance in gaming, but their Core Ultra 200 series CPUs with a K in the name, like the Ultra 7 265K, those are fine for mid-range gaming PCs. Intel's previous generations like the 13th and 14th gen CPUs with a K in their name, like the i5 14600K, those are also fine for mid-range gaming PCs. Note they did have some issues with 13th and 14th generation CPUs with a K in their name last year, primarily the i9 14900K and 13900K, but it does appear they've corrected it with some updates. For mid-range and pre-built gaming PCs with an RTX 4070 graphics card or lower, Ryzen 5000 CPUs, those are just fine, like the Ryzen 5600X, 5600, and 5700X. Intel CPUs that do not have a K in their name, like the Core Ultra 5 225 or the i5 12400, 13400, or 14400 are also good budget gaming CPUs. Now there are some CPUs you should absolutely avoid, and for the sake of time, I'm just gonna list them without really going into a deep dive on each one. Just know they're absolutely going to hurt your gaming performance. Do not buy the Ryzen 8000 series CPUs, they're really APUs. Don't buy the Ryzen 5700 non-X. This one's a little confusing because the Ryzen 5700X is absolutely fine, just not the 5700. And don't buy the Ryzen 5500 or 5600G. If you want more on this, see our PC parts to avoid in 2025 video, link down in the video description. So how much system RAM should the best pre-built gaming PC come with in 2025? There are now some AAA titles that will micro stutter with only 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's not game breaking, but I definitely recommend at least 32 gigabytes of system RAM in a 2-stick configuration for any gaming PC in the mid-range or higher end. At the higher end, you will see some 64 gigabyte systems, but this is massively overkill if you're just gaming. Of course, if you find a deal, go for it. Budget gaming PCs still mostly come with 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is absolutely fine around the $1,000 or less price point. In terms of DDR4 versus DDR5 RAM, there's not really much for you to do, as the mid-range and higher-end gaming PCs are all going to come with DDR5 because those CPUs need it, while the more budget systems with the older CPUs are going to use DDR4. For RAM speed, DDR4 is usually 3200 or 3600, while DDR5 systems, we'd ideally want to see 6000 speed, but honestly, anything 5200 or faster, it's probably fine as well. Now, your CPU needs proper cooling to avoid thermal throttling and destroying your FPS. So let's talk about CPU cooling and your case airflow. Now the good news, this is actually pretty simple. If you've got a Ryzen CPU with 6 cores, or you have an Intel CPU without a K in its name, low profile downdraft style coolers, they're generally fine, though we always appreciate seeing a budget tower air cooler. For 8 core or bigger Ryzen CPUs or i5 Intel CPUs with a K in the name, at a minimum, we want a budget tower air cooler or a 120mm liquid AIO cooler. For Ryzen 9 CPUs with 12 or 16 cores or an i7 or i9 CPU with a K in the name, like the 14700K, I recommend at least a 240mm AIO liquid cooler or big air cooler. Now, because these systems are shipped, most system builders prefer to use AIO liquid coolers rather than large air coolers. In terms of case airflow, you want to be able to get the hot air out of your case and get that fresh, cool air in. Typically, you want to see at least 2 intake and 1 exhaust fan, though the higher end the system, the more airflow that we want. Side slits are okay for air intake, but we really prefer to see mesh panels instead. How upgradable is your pre-built gaming PC? Now, if your system is assembled by a system integrator, called an SI for short, that means that they take regular off-the-shelf parts that a regular PC builder, like I would use, and that ensures that everything's going to be upgradable in the future. Now, these companies include CyberPower, Skytech, ABS, iBuyPower, and others. If instead you buy from a company that manufactures its own non-standard parts called an original equipment manufacturer, or OEM for short, like Dell, Lenovo, HP, or others, you'll likely get at least a couple of parts that may not be upgradable. Though some OEMs like HP in their Omen lineup have taken the extra step to make sure that the most commonly upgradable parts, like RAM, will work with off-the-shelf kits. The trade-off, it just comes down to saving a little bit of money on an OEM pre-built gaming PC right now, or spending just a little bit more for a fully upgradable system from a system integrator. You can, of course, have a system integrator build you a custom PC, but this is often quite expensive. In my opinion, just buying a pre-built system, that's where the far better value for most gamers is. Let's jump into the best pre-built gaming PC 2025 product recommendations. Now, links for everything, they're down in the video description. I've broken them out by 4K, 1440p, and budget pre-built gaming PCs. And I've tended to list the ones that I think are the faster ones towards the top of each category. We will update this list of best deals every couple days, so check out that list for the latest deals. A fire emoji means it's a great deal. 2 fire emojis means it's an amazing deal for the price we'll probably sell out. Let's start off at the very top of the stack here for 4K gaming PCs, and let's talk about RTX 5090 pre-built gaming PCs right now, because you cannot buy them at the time I'm filming. I do expect that's going to change in the next couple months here. So when they do come in, we'll have them listed down in the video description. You can check those out if you're looking for a 5090. I want to kind of prep you in terms of the pricing on them so you get an idea, because they're going to be significantly more expensive than even dropping down to like a 5080, 5070 Ti or an RX 9070 XT. This is one that right now that's out of stock. I expect when it does come back in stock, the price will probably go up. This has a Ryzen 9 9950X. Now that's a high core count CPU. It's typically found in more production-oriented PCs. That being said, 5090 is a great GPU for those of you out there who want to do video editing as well as gaming. 4 terabytes on the NVMe SSD, so 2 thumbs up there. This would be a really, really good PC at $4,800 given the value of the RTX 5090 right now. But just prep yourself for about $5,000-ish. And a lot of these are coming with more like Core Ultra CPUs that I'm not that sold on for a high-end GPU like this. I'd love to see like a 9800X 3D, even a 9950X 3D, which AMD says is going to launch relatively soon after this video goes live. Those kind of X3D CPUs to get the most out of the 5090, but you're looking to spend about $5,000. Let's move over to gaming PCs you can actually buy right now with an RTX 5080. RTX 5080 16GB GPU. They start somewhere around like $2,800 depending on what you want on it, and they can go all the way up to like $3,200, $3,300. This one's kind of on sale right now for about $3,099. Now this is Skytech. Skytech's a brand I like quite a bit. It's going to use a CPU that's a Ryzen 9800X 3D. That is the fastest gaming CPU on planet Earth right now. This is the one I would really focus in on if you're going to get a super fast GPU like an RTX 4080. It does have 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, 32 gigs of system RAM. That's DDR5 6000, 2 thumbs up there, 1000 watt power supply, and it comes with a 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. That just means the liquid cooler has 3 fans on it. It's a much longer one. In fact, massive overkill in terms of cooling for the CPU, but that's fine. We want overkill. We're spending enough money. We want overkill. The airflow on this looks really good. It's got three front fans here. Then it's got the AIO, the all-in-one liquid cooler mounted on the top, and 1 rear exhaust fan. Looks really nice overall. I would buy this for $3,100 if this is the level of performance that you're looking for. Let's check out another RTX 5080 PC. This one's by ABS. It stands for Advanced Battle Station. This is Newegg's in-house brand. Newegg is one of the largest PC components retailers in the US. Sometimes they take those PC parts that they sell, they put them together in a pre-built gaming PC like this, and that's the ABS brand. They sell it under the ABS brand. This is actually a really good deal right here. $2,899. I like ABS quite a bit. One of the things I like about ABS, I'm just going to highlight it in this one, which is that they will tell you exactly what component you get. Now, not for all the components necessarily, but on this one, they're going to tell you that you're going to get not just a RTX 5080, you're going to get the Gigabyte WindForce RTX 5080. They're not just going to say that you're going to get a motherboard with this. They're telling you it's going to be specifically the Gigabyte B850 Eagle Wi-Fi 6E motherboard on it. So I absolutely love that they're very, very specific in terms of the parts, especially if you have some knowledge of what you're looking for out there. This is a great, in fact, it's got a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD. It's got a 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler, another 1000 watt PSU. Again, $2,899. This one's on sale right now. This is probably the lower bounds what I'm seeing for RTX 5080 PCs. Now let's drop down quite a bit in price to the best 4K pre-built gaming PC 2025 with an RTX 5070 Ti or an RX 9070 XT. They are both exactly the same performance level. I would not personally care which one I got. If you want the NVIDIA card, let's start off with there, because you will pay quite a bit of a price premium in order to get an NVIDIA GPU. This is the CyberPower PC Gamer Supreme. All these crazy names that they come up with. But the key thing here is it comes with a 9800X 3D, 2 thumbs up there, the RTX 5070 Ti, 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM, a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD, so love that. Overall, it looks like a good PC. It's gonna come in a really cool Atrium style case here with tons of fans and a 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. This looks like a super cool PC. $2,319.99. Eventually, I expect these 5070 Ti PCs to start dropping in price a little bit. It might take a year before they drop substantially. So this is actually a pretty good price for one right now. You might find one with a lesser CPU like a Ryzen 9700X or 7700X for a little bit cheaper, but this is a pretty good package. If you're looking for incredible value for 4K gaming pre-built PCs in 2025, check one out with the RX 9070 XT. This is the one that AMD just released, going toe-to-toe with the RTX 5070 Ti and with FSR 4 looking really, really good against DLSS. $1,999, so just under $2,000, or let's just call it $2,000. Let's add the penny in there. So basically a $300 discount over what we just saw. This is a really, really good offering by Skytech here. Now this comes with a 7800X3D. It's still the second fastest gaming CPU on the planet. Don't be fooled by like 9700X or 9950X. Those are not faster for gaming than the X3D CPU. So it goes 9800X3D. The 7800X3D is almost as fast, and frankly, for this GPU level, it's probably as fast as the 9800X3D. Really need to worry about that with the 5080, 5090 kind of stuff. For $2,000, 32 gigs of RAM here, a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD, just like the other one does, 850 watt power supply, looks great. 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler with it. Honestly, these are the steal right now, and I do expect possibly some of them to sell out since they did just come out, but grab them while you can, especially at this price. All right, moving on to the best 1440p pre-built gaming PC in 2025. We're going to start at the top and work our way down. Now, honestly, these PCs I'm about to show you are also 4K capable. I kind of didn't know where to put them. They're kind of on the line. Easily could do 4K, but will give you great frame rates at 1440p. And honestly, if you're looking for insane rates at 1440p, any of the 4K picks are also very, very good, obviously. Let's start off with this one. This is the Skytech Chronos gaming PC. Now this has an RX 9070. This is the non-XT version. It's only about 15% slower than the 9070 XT, still good for 70 FPS on average at ultra details on super hard to run games at 4K. At 4K, will give you absolutely tons of frames at 1440p. This is going to come with a 7800X3D. Again, at this GPU level, the 7800X3D and the 9800X3D are essentially the same CPU in terms of their speed, and they are much faster again than like the 9700X, 7700X, or anything that Intel has out there right now. I love that this is going to come with 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM, 750 watt power supply, really all you need for the 9070. It's super power efficient. $1,779. These are really, really good deals if you want maximum performance. All right, moving down the stack now, we're here with an RTX 4070 Super Gaming PC for about $1,500. This is the CyberPower PC Gamer Extreme Gaming Desktop. These names are always crazy. Now this is an i7-14700KF. Last year I would not have recommended Intel because they had a degradation issue. It appears that they fixed those degradation issues through BIOS updates, so I feel fine now recommending this CPU. I'm still not going to recommend the 14900K, 13900K. Those are the ones that really had the problems. 14700K to a lesser extent, but this would be fine. 32 gigs of system RAM on it. RTX 4070 Super. Now this is the same power as the 5070. Just know that 5070 just launched a day or two before I'm filming this. We don't yet have pre-builts in the market with the 5070 on them. But the 40 series cards are completely selling out. I expect within a couple weeks they'll all be gone. We'll mostly be talking about the 50 series from here on out. So you'll be looking for a 5070 in the future. 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, $1,500. It comes in a great looking case by CyberPower on it with a 240 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. Overall, 2 thumbs up. At least at the time of filming, I am seeing some pretty insane deals like this, and this is probably what I would focus in on. I'm gonna give this one a couple fire emojis. Skytech Shadow Gaming PC here. i5-14400F, absolutely fine CPU, but not as high performance as I would like with a GPU like this. That being said, the RX 9070 XT 16 gigabyte GPU is smoking fast, faster than the 4070 Super or the 5070 that's there. So I absolutely love this deal right here for $1,349. Again, 14400F, it's a fine CPU. I wish we had a slightly higher performance, maybe like a Ryzen 7600X or 7700X, something like that here. But for $1,349, I feel like we are getting an absolutely insane deal. This has 16 gigabytes of RAM though. We are losing out on 32. We're going to 16 gigabytes of RAM. It does come with a budget tower air cooler instead of any kind of liquid cooling as well. So we are making some trade-offs here as we get towards $1,000. But I got to tell you, if I was buying a PC right now and I only had about, $1,400, I would definitely keep my eye on this one. Now, as we jump down from about $1,350, there's actually not a lot of value in the market until you hit about $1,000, something like this, which we'll go over in just a second. We are expecting, of course, new graphics card launches coming soon, and that will include the RX 9060 XT, the RTX 5060 Ti, that will probably fill that void right now in the market, but they haven't come out just yet, and the older stuff has largely sold through. As we get towards $1,000, we're still in 1440p land, thankfully. We weren't last year, but we are this year thanks to some new graphics cards out there, like the Intel Arc B580. Yes, Intel is now making mid-range graphics cards, or kind of lower to mid-range graphics cards, 1440p capable. In fact, I would not go to 1080p on these. They have a little bit of a CPU driver issue if you go down to 1080p, but at 1440p, they are smoking good. $975 for this one. Thermaltake gaming desktop. This is an i5 12600KF, actually quite a powerful CPU, 16 gigs of RAM on the system. Now, around $1,000, you're gonna get 16 gigs of RAM. It's really tough to get more than that. You can, the good news is, because this is a system integrator PC, if you wanted to add more RAM in the future, you could. This is gonna come with the Thermaltake Tough RAM kit to it. I absolutely love this 1TB NVMe SSD. It's got a budget tower air cooler on it. Looks really nice. This case looks super nice, by the way. It's got 4 fans, it's got 3 intake and 1 exhaust there. You can always put more fans on the top. You can put a liquid cooler in the future. Plenty of room for upgradability on this platform. For $975, by the way, is absolutely an insane price. If you're just looking for the best cheap gaming PC that you can buy right now in 2025, there's actually one really good gem out there. I don't know how long this deal is going to hold out. I feel like there was one of these last year as well, and it kind of sold out. This is the Zotac Mech Hero over at Newegg. This has a Ryzen 5 5600X, great CPU for this level of budget. RTX 3060, but it's a 3060 12 gigabytes, so it's got 12 gigs of VRAM. 2 thumbs up there. Now, kind of tight in terms of the storage. It's only got a 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD and a 1 terabyte hard drive. The good news is that you can always add in additional NVMe SSD. They're about $50 right now for 1 terabyte. So it's not very much if you want to grab something like this. And you certainly have plenty of space to get yourself started for $789. If you can't find that deal, and of course that will probably sell out, then what you're looking for primarily is an RTX 4060 gaming PC. So the 4060, yes, you're going to be limited by the 8 gigabytes of VRAM on that, but the good news is you'll have a complete gaming PC. It'll play most titles at relatively high details, even 1440p some of them. And if you mostly play competitive shooters, you're going to get tons and tons of frame rate out there. $899 is probably what you're going to end up spending, somewhere between $799 and $899. This one right here by Thermaltake has an i5 13400F. Good CPU, 16 gigabytes of RAM with the RTX 4060, a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, comes in all white, and it's got a budget tower air cooler on it. Looks like a pretty decent value for $899. Here's another one from MSI. Again, similar specs, i5 13400F, RTX 4060. This is going to use DDR5 RAM instead of DDR4. Not a really big change for the 13400F. 1 terabyte NVMe SSD for $849. Remember, everything is linked down in the video description. We'll keep updating those lists on a regular basis, so check those out for the latest deals and pricing in your region. And if you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And we'll catch you on the next one.